Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is the place where we bring you the headlines and the latest in black news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi.
And I'm Melissa.
On today's report, a teen girl holding a knife was fatally shot by police in Columbus, Ohio. The Department of Justice planned to open an investigation into the policing practices of law enforcement in Minneapolis, and Democrats renew the push for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
We have Floyd Family Attorneys Chris Stewart and Justin Miller here to give us an insider's look at Derek Chauvin's murder trial.
Dr. Frederick Haynes is here to talk justice, faith, and accountability. And Minneapolis organizer Toussaint Morrison and Tyleek McMillan from the National Action Network join us.
Yes, they are. We have all that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. Let's get it.
To me, this reeks of conflict of interest.
Do we know if he actually waved a gun? We only hear one side of the story.
This just really did make me feel good that the justice system did what they needed to.
We're going to keep following this story, and we will have the latest news. Unfortunately, a story we have to start with is something that everyone is talking about. Columbus police shot and killed a teenage girl Tuesday. Before we get into the details, soulmates, I have to warn you, the video you are about to see is incredibly disturbing. The child's name is Ma'khia Bryant, and she was either 15 or 16 years old. There are conflicting reports on her age, also conflicting reports when it comes to the details of this incident. Police say she was holding a knife and about to attack another girl. Bryant's family continues to maintain she dropped the knife before the officer shot her. Bodycam footage shows the officer on the scene yelling on the ground at least twice before shooting several times. And in a slowed down version, you can see something in Bryant's hand. The police chief released a segment of the body cam footage hours after the shooting. The decision was a departure from protocol, but the chief says they did this in an effort to be transparent. This department faces heavy scrutiny after a series of recent police killings that have led to civil unrest. You may remember Andre Hill was shot and killed by another CPD officer just this past December. That officer, Adam Coy, will soon stand trial for murder. Around 100 protesters in the area were celebrating the Derek Chauvin verdict. But once news of Bryant's death broke, their focus, immediately shifted to a demand for the body cam video, which, as you see, they got. Columbus Mayor Andrew Gitner also gave a statement that, many people are talking about. I want to point out that we do not know the full story here. Right. And as we've learned, multiple times, it is important for us to wait and be careful as the facts continue to come out here. The police chief in this case says state law allows officers to use deadly force when they are protecting their own lives or the lives of someone else. And so right now, the AG's office is investigating to determine exactly whether that was the case here in this instance. Our legal expert, Sue Ann Robinson, she has talked about something that I think is really interesting. She's like, remember, every time before, we don't see body cam footage. Right. Mm-hmm. We don't see body cam footage. Even in some of the, every single one of these is an upsetting case. Someone has died. I keep thinking, regardless of what happened here, there's a family that is without a child, a young girl, 16, 15, that is young. Yeah. And that she says, massed protest and the people being out in the street demanding it. That is why we're seeing body cam video. Because some of it doesn't make the police, look good. We saw, what happened in Dante Wright's case.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
What else doesn't make the police look good is that there is camera footage of one of the officers yelling "Blue Lives Matter." Right. And one of the other officers also had a face mask on that said "Blue Lives Matter." So it's really difficult for us to process this as anything other than retaliatory because of what happened yesterday. We had, 5 minutes to celebrate,
if that,
a quote unquote victory that really isn't even a victory at this point. This is justice that was, just, our expectations are so low at this point. The bar is so low.
Sure, Melissa. I definitely agree with you. Also, the press conference that the mayor did, he did say that although the details are not full and complete, he did feel like Brooke said, transparency. And I do believe that was a good idea to release the body cam footage. But also, I just want to add in here, this was a foster child. She called the police because she was in danger. She felt like she was in danger. The police brought a gun to a knife fight. If you can't serve and protect two young girls that are having a fight, not even two young girls, because of course we don't know all the details, but there's no way there's no justification for this young, talented, her TikTok, it has like 10,000 followers. followers. People are following her, putting comments under her videos, have 70,000 views on every. I mean, she was so talented, so creative. There's no reason, no justification for her death. There's just no justification. Blue Lives Matter, whatever anyone else wants to add in. The fact of the matter, this was a knife fight, and a police officer shot a young girl over a knife fight. And we called the police to take care of us, to serve and protect. There's no justification at all.
He also had a taser. He had choices.
I'm just going to say real quick, at the end of the day, we were doing this for George Floyd. We felt like we got some justice with that verdict, right? We were doing this. We brought it down for, what, a couple of minutes, and we're back here again.
Absolutely.
Enough said.
Exactly. Thanks, Romeo. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced this morning that the Department of Justice will open an investigation into the policing practices of law enforcement in Minneapolis. The investigation comes a day after a jury in Minneapolis found former city police officer Derek Chauvin guilty of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter in the death of George Floyd last May.
Good morning. Like so many of you, I have closely watched the events in Minnesota. Although the state's prosecution was successful, I know that nothing can fill the void that the loved ones of George Floyd have felt since his death. My heart goes out to them and to all those who have experienced similar loss.
So just to reiterate what he said, although the state's prosecution was successful, I know that nothing can fill the void that the loved ones of George Floyd have felt since his death. The move tees up greater federal oversight of local police departments, giving the DOJ an avenue to bring civil suits against police departments with a pattern of using excessive force or discriminatory practices against certain groups of people, such as people of color or people with disabilities. This is all according to The Hill.
The House on Tuesday rejected a Republican Party-led resolution to censor Representative Maxine Waters for saying we've got to get more confrontational in response to police brutality against African Americans. Lawmakers voted along party lines 216-210 with no rejection on either side to table the resolution from Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy that would have issued the chamber's harshest disapproval short of expulsion. Republicans argued that Waters incited violence with her remarks at a protest over the weekend in Minneapolis, where the tensions are high over the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former police officer who is charged with the murder of George Floyd, as well as the recent police killing of Daunte Wright.
Got to leave Auntie alone, that's for sure. Democrats are renewing a push for criminal justice reform following former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's conviction in the murder of George Floyd. President Biden, congressional Democrats, and members of Floyd's family in Minneapolis lauded the jury's decision Tuesday, finding Chauvin guilty on all 3 charges stemming from Floyd's death in May, but said it was no substitute for broader action on police reform. The legislation passed the House in March but faces an uphill battle to winning 60 votes in the Senate. Democrats have largely backed the bill, but Republicans have expressed opposition chiefly over its provision changing qualified immunity. Several senators on Tuesday pressed their colleagues to come around to the legislation.
We have a couple special guests I would like to bring in right now on this topic. Floyd Family Attorneys Chris Stewart and Justin Miller are very thankfully here to give us a more in-depth look at these past few weeks and everything that has happened since the guilty verdict came down. Thank you both so much for being here.
Anytime. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. All right, we have, as you can imagine, lots of questions. So, Chris, I'll start with you. You said George Floyd can finally rest in peace. Talk to us and explain to our soulmates a little bit of the significance of yesterday's verdict for you all on the inside.
I mean, it was a rare breath of air that people get. George Floyd died not being able to breathe, and this was a deep breath for the entire world. Like I said at the press conference, George Floyd's death was not just something that the family had to suffer, not just something that Minnesota went through, but the entire world, every Black person around. It affected white people. It affected the entire world. I mean, there were marches in literally nearly every country in the world for a Black man in the United States. That's powerful. And that story had to end with justice and getting 3 counts, all guilty, first time in history for second-degree murder in that state against an officer. There aren't words to express how that revitalized a sense of justice being possible in this country if you fight for it.
Justin, can you walk us through the emotion in the room when the verdict was read?
Yeah, I was, floored. I think all of us were. Our adrenaline was at an all-time high.
You know, it's kind of like when you're riding a roller coaster and you get down to the very bottom, and then you go all the way to the very top. And that's what happened. This entire trial has been like that. You know, there have been ups and downs. You know, it was high in the beginning, and then when the defense started, you know, putting on their case, it got low again, and you could feel that from everyone, the lawyers, the family, everyone. And then right before the verdict, I think we were all just, you know, kind of waiting, and at a very low point, and it was quiet, and you could hear a pin drop. And when he announced guilty, it exploded in there, and it was just a well of emotion. I haven't cried like that. You know, I can't remember the last time I cried like that. So it was an emotional thing, and I'm sad that it has to happen that way for us, but that's the way it was, and it's a good start.
I want to ask you both this next question. I'll start with you, Chris. Where do we go now, you know, as a country when it comes to criminal justice reform and policing?
Oh, pick a case. There
Right.
are a ton of them still out there that need justice. You know, we've got a ton of them, even just here in the mecca of civil rights here in Atlanta, that have not gotten justice yet. You know, we just got to keep pushing. What we cannot let happen is we take this victory and just move on and think everything's okay. That's not how it works. I mean, I had Walter Scott, which everybody remembers years ago when he was running from the police and shot 5 times in the back. We thought that was going to be changed when that officer got 20 years. But we've got to keep pushing. And what it is the entire system has to be reformed. And the way to do that is George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. That bill is phenomenal. It would regulate a lot of things that departments are right now just doing whatever they want on their own. That bill has to pass. I know it's going to be a political battle, but we've got to get past politics if we truly care about this country.
Justin, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Chris said. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has everything in it that we need to continue this fight. And so we have to make sure that we push our legislators to pass that, because those things are going to stop a lot of the next Derek Chauvins from even thinking about doing something like he did to George Floyd. So we're on the right track. You know, this was a small victory. It wasn't, we won a battle. We didn't win the war. And you got to celebrate your victories, even if it's a battle. But don't make any mistakes about it. We are still fighting, and everybody needs to stay vigilant and keep going.
And speaking of victories, you could almost say that was a partial victory in a sense, because this case isn't even over yet, right? There are 3 other former officers that are set to stand trial in Floyd's murder this summer. What do you see happening there? And has, you know, what you saw happening there changed since this guilty verdict came down? Start with you, Justin.
Yeah, those 3, they got to see what happens when you go to trial with a Minnesota jury in a situation like this. So, you know, this is just my own personal thought. I don't think we're going to see trials in these 3. I think we're going to see some plea bargaining going on, and they're gonna try to get out of this because they don't want to happen to them what happened to Derek Chauvin.
Chris, I imagine you're going to say the same thing. Every lawyer I have talked to has said exactly that.
Ditto.
Understood.
Everything he said. Yeah.
All right, well, how about this? Chauvin will be sentenced in less than 2 months. Chris, so what does Floyd's family want to see?
You know, we can't comment directly on the sentencing part because, as you've seen, that judge is very keenly aware of what's being said in the media by anyone related to the case. The only thing we can say is that they want the maximum time possible, and that'll be in the judge's hand. I know that the Attorney General did a phenomenal job of going for the enhanced sentencing. And so, look, Keith Ellison and his team have done such a phenomenal job. You know, we're just going to ride it out with them because I've seen these cases. I've been in courtrooms with families where the verdict was not what we got yesterday. And I've never seen a prosecution team so intent on fighting for a Black man that was killed. The white lawyers, the Black lawyers, it didn't matter. They were obsessed with getting justice. And it wasn't from the public pressure. It wasn't from marches. They truly believed in what they were doing. And that's rare. You got to have more DAs and more attorney generals and more prosecutors like that.
Justin, I understand you represent Roxy Washington. She is the mother of George Floyd's 7-year-old daughter, Gianna, obviously in all of our prayers. Can you tell us how they're both doing?
Yeah, so yeah, we represent her. We represent Gianna and Roxy. They are, I guess, doing better, because of that verdict. It takes a little weight off your shoulders. But, you think about Gianna. She'll never get her father back, and she's a 7-year-old girl. I have a 7-year-old girl myself. She's going to go through life without her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So, not having your dad is something that you can't really come back from. There's no justice for that. So, but there is some modicum of satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
that your dad's killer is going to jail for hopefully a very long time.
That it wasn't ignored. Well, still nothing will ever be enough.
Yes, correct.
How is the rest of the family doing? Either of you, feel free to jump in here.
Well, you could see the excitement even, in the room, even when we were all at the big press conference yesterday. I mean, it was a relief because they've seen other families go through this and not get justice.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a victory, but not just a personal victory for them. It was a victory that they want to keep going, that they want for other families across this country, that they want for the next Black victim when this happens. Because as I said yesterday, it's going to happen again. It's not going to stop just because George Floyd was killed. But at least now there is an example that there can be serious repercussions.
I have one more question before we go. And again, thank you both so much for being here. I can imagine you're busy. But Chris, this is something I really wanted to ask you because you've talked about bad police officers essentially being a disservice to good officers, which is similar to what our Attorney General just said earlier today while announcing the Justice Department's investigation. But you also, you mentioned this again yesterday. Why is this message, the importance of acknowledging good officers, why is that important to you? Especially, I think, we're at a space where so many people don't even want to hear it, right? It's hard for them to see that. They are frustrated, worn out.
Yeah. See, I can say it because I've been in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I've been fighting civil rights cases representing these families for years and years and years and gone through hell doing it. So I have no issue speaking my mind, whether the audience is Black or white.
Mm-hmm.
And the impediment of why change never happens is we're so polarized. We allow situations to happen where we get put in a box of, oh, we can't pass these reforms because it's anti-police. No, it's not. That's just stupidity. You can support the good officers, because I know some good officers. I had my life saved by 2 officers a couple years ago. There are officers that care about their community, but there are also officers that are terrible, that are out there racially profiling, taking their power and abusing people. So we have to open our eyes and see that there's both. And we need to get rid of the officers that abuse their power. And so change never happens because we get put in this game of allowing people to pick a side, when all we need to really do is say, look, let's institute reforms, let's change policing, acknowledge there are some good officers, but we also acknowledge that there's some bad officers. It's pretty much common sense to me. It's just that people like to wear a certain jersey. I want the truth and I want justice, so I don't really care.
Justin, I saw you nodding your head strong during that. Would you like to jump in here also, give your perspective?
Yeah, it's just sad that there are a lot of things in this country we could get done, but we're not getting them done. And police reform is just one of them. I mean, there are several different gun control laws that we need, just different little stuff, things that would help children, things that would help poor people, that we're not going to get done because we go from one side to the next side, to the next side, to the next side without getting anything done, and no real change can happen. So hopefully this administration is working a little differently. They look like they might be. And maybe we can get something done. Like we said before, George Floyd Policing Act, that's the one, George Floyd Act. Just remember that. Talk to your people, your senators, your legislators about that, because we need to get that passed.
Again, thank you both for joining us in the midst of, helping hold up a family that is going through, what none of us really, but also at the same time, too many of us can imagine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.